so far, essentially what we've looked at in the promotional planning process is, we've looked at the idea of the promotional asset sheets and what we need to do with those kind of things. We looked at the promotional planning worksheet and looking at target things that we want to do, expected things that we want to do, so on and so forth. Now, one of the things that we said is we want to go ahead and block off based on our low months, right? Our non-RGA activities. And one of the things that you said you wanted to do was create video series and create those kinds of things, right?
Right.
All right. So you got some titles for me, some working titles of things that we can look at as far as a promotional basis. What are those?
Production has to wait.
Okay. Production has to wait. Okay.
Power loss, ready or not, here it comes.
Power loss, ready or not, here it comes. Okay.
Control power is the little things.
Control power, it's the little things.
Disasters, failures, and loss, oh my.
Disasters, failures.
And loss, oh my. Like life cycle repairs.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Okay.
Those, and there's quite a few more that are kind of electrical catastrophe repairs. Just do those electrical events.
Okay. Electrical catastrophe and repairs.
What you don't know may hurt you.
Ooh. What you don't know may hurt you.
Electricity gone wild.
Electricity gone wild.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Loss of production power. I mean, they're all in the same grouping.
Okay. Well, let's start with that. Mark can get a copy of what else you've got up there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 there. Okay. Okay. So why do we want to have an idea of some of this before we start working on our promotional planning or actual promotions? Okay, so remember I said when we're looking at revenue goals and those kind of things, we look at our averages. We have low months, right? And so low months are best where we want to put our non-RGA focused activities in, because those revenue generating activities, there's only so much that I can do in a month that's historically a bad month for the industry to be able to generate additional sales, right? But one of the reasons why I like to do this before I start actually looking at the actual promotions is I need to be able to determine degree of difficulty, right? Remember, you're doing annual planning, right? And so in your particular case, the worst months historically are May, September, and January. Maybe in the worst, September, then January, right? So I know, given the time of year, what I need to do as far as preparation for this kind of stuff. How much time do I need? Something that is going to be much more difficult to put together, I want to plan further out. Something that's a lot easier to put together, I want to plan closer in, right? So if you think about it that way, essentially, if this is October, I've got coming up, I'm already past September, so we're good. I got May of next year, and then I got January of next year, right? So the first non-RGA that I've got to plan for is January, right? So that being the case, it's October, November, December. Then it's January. January doesn't count. You got 60 days, right? Essentially 90 days because we're at the 1st of October, but safe side, we'll say 60 days, right? So you got to plan the first thing out in 60. We got to get that planned out, done, put together in that 60-day period, right? So I don't want to go for the most difficult thing that you have on that. These may be good working titles for blog articles and those kind of things, but remember, our ideal scenario is we want to do some series, right? In your goals, right? So we want to do some series. So something like an electrical disasters series may be relatively easy to put together. It may be very difficult to put together, right? So it would be easy to put together if I'm just wanting to do descriptive text. But if you need time to go out to actual sites, locations and take pictures and have pictures and photography and those kind of things that can go along with the text, that's going to take a little more time, right? That kind of happens naturally over time, right? Yeah. And so you probably want to give that one a further out than, okay, we're going to record some videos of how to tear this stuff apart and do basic maintenance on breakers, right?
Just occurred to me too, some of these things in Pat's world won't be predictable, such as a major electrical power outage. Yeah. And so if you have an idea of the content that you have scheduled for later on, let's say there's an emergency electrical fire or something like that, and he says, I know I'm going to be doing content later on this year about electrical fires, and here's an opportunity to get...
Absolutely. Here's documentation. Yeah. Right.
I don't need it for now, but I have it scheduled later, so that's a trigger to me to make this happen while I'm out there.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the point is I need to be cognizant. The whole point of annual planning is I need to be cognizant of things that are going to be coming up throughout the year, right? Yeah. Or the coming years, right? Especially because, you look at electrical catastrophe type stuff, this is one of those, if done well, that could easily be viral with people sharing. You could see electricians share, take a look at this. Look at this picture. What did this idiot do, right? Look at this guy. This guy wired it backwards and it blew up, right? Oh, dang. Right? So it's a matter of you could have that as an ongoing annual series that gets promoted specifically for nothing more than the purpose of social shares, right? A general awareness campaign that is designed for brand awareness through social sharing, right? And an attempt to create some content that has a high likelihood of becoming viral, right? So
I'm guilty when I go on jobs like one we did a while back. It was a medium voltage system that just water got in and blew it up. Well, I hit go mode. You got to evaluate what it is, find out, get the parts, fix it, get it back online. And in that framework, fortunately, I was able to keep some parts that were bad to show the catastrophic damage, but I didn't get pictures in the field.
Yeah, and see it's one of those thought processes where I've got to change my thought just from a consultant, electrician, or whatever to I'm more like the insurance adjuster at this particular point, right? I want documentation of all of it. I want the before, the during, and the after. Let me get some documentation of all of this kind of stuff because this makes really good fodder. If I think it's cool, other people are going to think it's cool. Yeah, if I look at it and say, wow, that's kind of crazy, other people are going to look at it and say, wow, that's kind of crazy, right? It's that whole idea of the wreck on the interstate, the train wreck thought process, so on and so forth. People love to see cool stuff, especially if there's blood, guts, and gore, like on the interstate. It's the only reason why people really stop. Am I going to see somebody laying on the ground, whatever, right? But in the case of the electrical stuff and this, that, and the other, do I see something burnt, exploded, melted? Where's the burn marks? Is there skid marks where it shot the dude across the floor? What happened with this thing, right? That's what we want to capitalize on, but that's something that we either have to do it over time, or two, we have to combine it from other things that we can find, right?
I would even say, besides the insurance agent viewpoint, just make yourself be like the reporter. You're thinking that you're the reporter,
Okay.
the news reporter.
Sure, yeah.
Give the story first.
Yeah.
Right.
Get me in there.
That's exactly what I was thinking, bring your news crew. So, after the incident, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
What did your supervisor have to say about your performance?
What can be done to prevent this accident?
Well, yeah, all
Well,
those things
and so yes, reporter, absolutely. But there's one step deeper that the insurance adjuster takes that the reporter doesn't take, right? So the reporter's getting the pictures and, hey, this is what happened, and that's the cool stuff. The insurance adjuster is going to break it down and find out the why it happened, what could have been done differently, and that's what's going to appeal to its target market.
Yes, because I just came off of one about a month and a half ago that there was an insurance adjuster there that they wanted to know the why.
Right.
Because you had no protection. They had a dummy in there.
Right.
Basically was saying it looks like a breaker, but it wasn't a breaker.
Right.
And they never knew it again for 20 years. And I pulled it out and looked, and it's like the label they was saying in the back.
So the people that are going to be watching this mostly going to be electricians.
That's what we
It's
want.
Not just general public.
Yeah, we don't. I want general public to see it for share factor, but I don't care. I mean, the general public would look at the pictures, right? They're going to look at the pictures. It's they want to see the explosions. It's like Fast and Furious, right? You're not watching the Fast and the Furious for the cinematic value, right? The dialogue and the depth of feeling and emotion within it. You're watching it to see cars flip and blow up, right? Shoot them up, bang them up, so on and so forth. Some of the ladies may say, I'm watching it to look at Vin Diesel, right? But the people that are gearheads are going to look at that look at what they put on this vehicle, right? Look at how that worked. I wonder where they got that, right? Man, that thing must have cost a fortune, right? And in the electrician industry or the electrical industry, that's what they're looking at is not just the pictures, because the pictures are cool, but what's the value that's placed within that? What happened? What did they do, right? Those are the kind of guys that are going to want to look at it and say, man, they put a 20 amp breaker on something that needed a 120 amp breaker on it. You know what I'm saying? It's no wonder the thing melted down. Idiots. Yeah, because that's what those guys do, right? So, and that essentially, so the target there with this kind of stuff is to increase something very simple. It's called dwell time, right? I don't want somebody, I want people to come for the pictures, and then I want them to stay for the story, right? Target market needs to stay. The longer the dwell time, the better off you are, right? By the way, dwell time is a direct reflection into your SEO, right? Did you know that?
Sure. Yes.
So the longer people stay on your website, the higher ultimately your website's going to rank. That is a factor. Absolutely. So when they're looking at dwell time, it's how long do they stay on the site? How long do they stay on a page? Are they going and seeing other things? That's why internal and external linking is very important. External linking because of the testimonial type factor, right? And the evidence, in essence, that we are using other people's information, not just our own, right? So external linking is a lot like in English class when you had to write a paper with citations, right? So you've got information with citations. Internal linking is ultimately, it's the saying, look, here, we got value here, but I've also got value here, 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 and here, right? Absolutely. Get them in the store, keep them in the store. So I know, we're kind of intermixing SEO and email marketing at the same time, but it's the reason for it, right? So when we're doing non-RGA activities should be designed to generate future RGAs, right? So non-RGA activities should be designed to help us generate future revenue, right? And so It's that by design. So while we're thinking about the email marketing, the promotional planning, the annual plans, the assets that we have, and the holiday schedules and this, that, and the other, we also have to think about on these non-RGA activities, what's the real purpose of this other than just creating some cool stuff, right? I don't want to just create consumable information. I want to create consumable information that leads to brand awareness. It leads to brand authority. It leads to credibility. It leads to validity. It leads to these kinds of things so that these people begin to remember my brand. And when they have that need, now they're coming back to it, right? And I'm building the relationship through email, but I'm building the authority through my information, right? Think about it this way. You shop at Amazon, right? I like Amazon. I shop at Amazon a lot. But there are quite a few times where I've gone to Amazon to look at a product, and it's like there's just not quite enough information. I'm a buyer. I'm ready to buy something. The description's not good enough, or maybe the question, the Q&A at the bottom's not good enough, or there's information there that I need that I'm missing, so I have to leave Amazon and go somewhere else to find that information, right? And that's problematic for Amazon in general, right? Because if you leave their website, the question is, are you going to come back? But if I'm thinking that way as a consumer, then as a producer, in essence, as the business, that's also has to be my thought process. As I'm creating content, what other questions is this content generating? And can I create answers to that will keep them on the website, right? Does that make sense? So that's how we begin. That's how you begin to create depth over time, right? That's how you create that depth over time. Now, so once we have this, we've got this list of non-RGA activities and some ideas for things that it's going to do and ideas for what it's going to cost and so on and so forth. What's our next step?
Schedule them.
Okay, so schedule them. Where do we schedule them? We schedule them on our annual promotional planning worksheet, right? So we're going to put on our worksheet, we know January, May, and September are the three focal months for non-RGA activities. By the way, does that mean those are the only months in which we need to create content? No. In other words, what we know now is we can break it down to be able to say, if I've got January, May, and September, I've got 3 areas of focus, right? One of the areas of focus was electrical catastrophes, right? I know that's going to be the most difficult to put together. It's the furthest away, right? So what was one of our other focal points? What was one of our other things that we wanted to do? Remember the other non-RGAs?
Recovery and electrical gold is what we gave it, but it was a series of investment recovery. Okay,
investment recovery. And so that series of investment recovery is all about what? Remember?
If we broke down,
What you do with after a disaster, what can you recover to get some more of your investment in the equipment?
Not necessarily after a disaster.
no,
Well, it could be if you're going to be tearing down and rebuilding. If you're tearing down a building.
Okay. It's investment recovery.
demo or overstock or construction back up.
Right. So it's what to do with stuff to get some of your money back.
Instead of throwing it away.
Right. Instead of just chucking it in the trash or whatever, right?
Let me pay you to haul out.
Absolutely. So the idea there is, remember we indicated what were there 5, I think there were 5 situations that we came up with.
I've got some titles. You want to hear them?
Absolutely.
Demolition for dollars.
Okay. Demolition for dollars.
Factory facelift for funds. Funds, or cash, the F that played hard there. Breathe life into your dead inventory
Okay.
and reheat your electrical leftovers.
Okay.
So that way you're breathing life back, the
Yeah.
leftovers.
So if we're creating a 5 to 7 part series on that, does that mean, by the way, so if we're looking at investment recovery as a category, right? Does that mean that we don't want to create any of this material until January or May?
No, it does not.
It means that we want to get started creating the material now, but we know we need to have all of it done before January or May, so we can essentially release that for email marketing purposes, release that as an email related series, or launch, right, that series of information. So we probably want to go ahead and get that on the blog, right? We want to get that on the site for the information that we have, and then we're just kind of, as we get it and get it done, we're now putting it together in an information group.
So, with, say, those right there, out of those 1, 2, 3, 4 titles that I just said, would it be right to go ahead and start the blog process on those to have,
Yes,
put it on the website, and then that's content that then you can video base off from that?
correct.
Okay.
And then when you video base off the content, then we just take and add the video back to the content, right?
Repurpose it back to the.
Absolutely. So this is where next steps in this is you're starting to write out bullet points on some of these titles. So you're going to pick out of your 7 essentially working titles in this particular area, right? You're going to pick out of those, and you're going to say, let me write some bullet points about this. Let me write some bullet points about this. And again, it's a content creation process. So content creation process says I start with an idea, right? And then I start listing out bullets about that idea. These are the things how it works, and then you start filling in the blanks about your bullets, right? I wrote a thing several years back, how to write a book in 14 days, right? And so quite literally, I did that. That's the last book that I wrote was 290 pages. And so 290 odd pages anyway. And I wrote that entire book in about 2 weeks, right? Using that thought process. But essentially it's very simple. It's let me get some bullets, right? And then can I get some sub bullets? Now I just need to put it all together in the content mode, right? So, but by doing that, I have different pieces of content. So you think about it, one of the questions we get, for example, quite often from people is things like, how can I generate leads on LinkedIn? Right? I need to be able to generate leads and sales from LinkedIn, right? If you actually looked at our blog, we have multiple articles on that? We have multiple articles on five ways to generate leads on LinkedIn, 9 tips for lead generation on LinkedIn. We have multiple articles on that. So quite literally, I can take those multiple articles and other content that we already have created and combine them together to make a series. I could also combine that information together to make a product, right, that we could sell to people on how to do that. Right? There are loads of different ways that I can use that information, but for our purposes here, one of the things that I have is there is a 7 email series that is the specific step-by-step process that we've used to generate leads on LinkedIn. Right? So if somebody's interested in that, I'll give you the step-by-step, exactly all the details on how we do it. And people say, but wait a minute, aren't you giving away the secret sauce? Aren't you giving away the juice? Absolutely. Why? This, by the way, was a conversation that I had yesterday. Same conversation I had yesterday with...
It creates buy-in in the relationship.
It creates buy-in in the relationship. Okay, why else?
Building trust.
Yeah.
Okay, builds trust. Why else?
It proves you a professional in your field.
Okay.
Authority in your field.
Proves me as an authority in my field. People can see they know how to do it. Why else?
It's also repurposable content for future.
It's repurposable content. Okay, fine. But you're missing the big point.
The customer understand what's going on.
Customer will understand what's going on. Fine. But they're getting it whether they're a customer or not. So anybody can ask for the information and get it.
You can move them along the phone.
It's part of the sales process, right? As far as I'm concerned, it's a qualifier. In other words, if you came to me and said, hey, teach me what you know because I want to do it all myself, that's not an ideal client for me. We want people who pay us to do the work, right? But you get somebody that says, I want to know about this generating leads on LinkedIn, and they see the process. Some percentage of people are going to say, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that myself. That is not an ideal client for us, right? Is it a possible client? Sure. Might they use this for something else? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, do I want to work with somebody who's going to be trying to micromanage me every step of the way? No, I don't. Because I'm the expert. They are not. If they were the expert, they would not be in their industry. They would be in mine. Right? So that being said, what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the people that want to know more about that particular process, and then they look at it and say, that's awesome, but I ain't going to do it. Let me just pay these guys to do it.
Yeah, I got a job.
Yeah.
One thing is I got a job.
Yeah. I don't need 47 jobs.
Amen.
Yes. So that being said, this is why we create this stuff, right? So things like the investment recovery. The target here is to get people thinking about this stuff because they're not already, right? They're just thinking, we pulled this out, we put this one in, let's haul this one off to the dump. We're going to pay somebody to haul it off to the dump. When I could flip that and say somebody's going to pay me to come and get it. What?
Had that conversation yesterday. Guy was literally going to put it in the trash. I said, when the power company comes cut that off, I will pay you if you'll pick that up with a crane and put it in my trailer and I'll haul it off. You don't even have to get a roll off or a dumpster.
It's kind of like that whole, I had several years back, right? You got these, you got some of these services out here, like what is it, around here, the college hunks hauling junk type services, right? And you know these people, I don't know if you guys have ever priced any of this. You know they charge like an arm and a leg for this mess. It's like expensive in my mind anyway. It's expensive. You got a refrigerator that needs to be hauled off to the dump. You call these guys and it's like $200 or some mess. I'm like, what the heck, man?
They're busting the compressor out and they're selling it. Scrap.
Yeah. And so, so they may be taking it apart, selling for scrap. I'm paying them to do that, and they're actually making money both ways. Versus a guy that's a refrigerator repair guy that I say, hey, it's got a little bit of problems with it, but if you'll come and get it, you can have it, right? And the guy says, I feel bad. This thing's perfectly good. It just needs, I give you $50, right? Whole different world, whole different thought process, right? So it's a market. There's a market awareness issue right there going on. So that's perfect. So that's market awareness of things that are costing them money, time and effort that doesn't have to, right? What's the purpose of this?
You can lead back to maintenance and possibly keeping parts on the shelf.
Yeah, education with wow factor.
Yeah, because they're ready for when the catastrophe hits.
Absolutely, education with wow factor. What was our third?
We kind of blended the first two into the first group. We had originally we wanted to do a how-to on repairs.
That was it. It was how to.
Like the education.
Okay, so the catastrophe is simply the wow factor, attracting those people within the target market who these are the people that want to see the train wrecks. Yeah, you're going to get general public want to come to look at the pictures and those kind of things. You're going to get people in the industry want to come and see what kind of stupidity happened, right? So you're going to want to see that. The how-to series is more of that. How do I test a breaker to see if it's bad, right? How do I take this apart, do cleaning and maintenance for regular cleaning and maintenance, right? So to prevent the catastrophes, right? So this is general education, general information, general knowledge, right? I was looking at something the other day because you guys know I like to do woodworking, right? I like to build stuff. I like to do that kind of stuff. It's fun for me. It's very much a distraction from my everyday day-to-day. So there's a couple of, I don't follow a lot on YouTube, but there are a couple of channels that I subscribe to. They're like woodworking channels, and one of them is like, it's this dude named Jim, right? He doesn't post all that often, and some of his stuff is like very basic, right? But I subscribe to it because every now and then he's got that nugget, right? There's that nugget that I just didn't think about. You know, and so not long ago I was watching one, and he was making a jig for something, and I was like, "Are you serious? Like those things are like $100, and he made it out of $2 worth of junk, you know, for this stinking jig." I just did not cross my mind, right? And I'm like, cool. It's the only reason I really subscribe to his channel is because every once in a while there's a nugget, right? That's what the how-to's about. Right? Get more people buying in, staying in because of the nuggets. Right? And the more you do that, I mean, remember, I'm thinking Jim. Now, Jim doesn't sell, he's not selling woodworking parts. He would probably make some money if he did. You know?
You need to watch Izzy Swan and Samurai Carpenter.
I do watch Samurai Carpenter. I like Samurai Carpenter. Yeah. Samurai Carpenter is... He's next level on stuff, and watching him do some of the stuff with like old school tools, you know, it's like, dude,
Watch it for hours, man.
yeah, he is definitely one of those that you watch it, you pause it, you're like, okay, wait a minute, let me try that.
Yeah.
No, wait, let me rewind. Yeah,
Take the wedge out of the chiller.
yeah, he kind of reminds me. He's like the new school Bob Ross. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, it's like you see this old white dude with a big old afro and a paint thing, and it's like, what can this guy do? And the next thing you know, it's like, you know, eat it, Thomas Kincaid. Bob Ross is amazing, you know. So it's like that. Some happy little trees, majestic mountain, right? If you've never watched Bob Ross, you wouldn't get it. But if you've never watched Bob Ross, you're not American. Get out of here. That's right. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so that's really kind of our point. So what does this do, right? It gives you a time frame in essence to do these. Now what we have to do is we have to fill in the gaps of the other months, right? How do we start the process of filling in the gaps with the other months?
Would you, because I broke mine down quarterly.
Okay.
I had the 3 months of the worst quarter, 3 months of the, you know, I just broke it down all the way back to the best quarter, or the best 3 months.
Yeah, but the problem is that if because you're looking at it, you're looking at, I know you got February, July, October is the best, April, December, August next, March, June, November is the next, then you got January, September, and May are the worst, right? Which is fine. I want to look at it on a monthly basis. I don't want to look at it on a quarterly basis, right?
I guess you go your next worst and keep going.
Well, not necessarily.
Go to the other inspector and pick your best.
So I'm not really looking at this particular point. I'm not looking for best or worst anymore, right? So I'm done. I'm kind of looking at my worst months to determine where I'm not really focused so much on revenue. I'm focused on all the cool things that I'll need to do or want to do that are not directly revenue related. Everything else is going to be about revenue, right?
So the next would be filler.
So the next is going to be, remember, so we're going to be creating, you're going to be creating content for these all throughout the year. This is just when the stuff is officially launched as, hey, we got this series on this, you know, click here to watch it. So what's going to happen with this is if we've got catastrophes as a series, let's say it's a 7-part series, right? That's where you go back into the blog, let's say, and you're putting this part one, right? You're adding part 1 to that. Right? Click here to watch the next catastrophe, right? You're putting a call to action. Your calls to action in those are to watch the next part of the series, right? Now watch the next part of the series. Watch the next part of the series, right? So, dwell time, right? It goes back to that dwell time.
It launches in September on the catastrophes, and then it has, say, 4 after that, and I'm monitoring the flow of their action throughout with my
Correct. Action and activity. So we're wanting to watch on these things, and once we officially launch it, right? Not saying that we don't look at any metrics beforehand, but once you officially launch that as a series, now you're going to want to look a lot closer at the metrics on this kind of stuff to be able to determine dwell times, and so on and so forth.
That's where I misunderstood. I was thinking that September you would have catastrophe and you would have one catastrophe video and that would be it. But you already need to have the
We want to build it.
already created
Yes.
with the series.
Yeah. So this is October. There's 11 months. I need a 7-part series, right? So if I'm going to do a 7-part series on that, I need 7 parts created in the next 11 months. Make sense?
And depending on how long you've been creating content, you could very well find that you have almost everything you need in past blog articles or past stuff that you share on Facebook.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's quite different. It's the amount of work necessary is quite different for someone who's just starting creating content versus somebody who's maybe been creating content for a period of years, right? I mean, like for me, for example, it's something that we were looking at the other day is in my Evernote. I've got 56,000 pieces of content. 56,000. I have over 1,000 videos that we have created, right? Most of which are not on YouTube.
And you did not start just last week.
No, I did not start just last week. But I have the capacity now to be able to mix and match and combine and recombine and do all kinds of things with all of that to make cool stuff out of it, right? So if you're starting with it being directed, I could see this being an ongoing series, this being an ongoing series, this maybe not so much being an ongoing series. Yeah, it's limited in the information. This could be an ongoing series over time. You could literally break this down by the product category. You could break it down by the brand type, right? So I could literally have a series on how to work on Square D stuff, right? How to perform Square D maintenance, right? That could be a series. Or how to perform breaker maintenance. How to do testing at different levels of breakers, right? So I can do different series based on that if I keep going. Essentially, it's the same stuff. I'm just repackaging it in different ways, right? But it may start out with just general how-to, right? How to test a breaker. I may make a note on there that we're doing a Square D, it's a Square D X amp breaker, so on and so forth, right? So it may be that. I may come back later and change the title to how to do maintenance on a Square D 70 amp breaker, whatever it may, you know what I'm saying? I'm just pulling crap out of my rear right now. But I may be able to break it to that, right? More specific, right? So, but initially I'm going to make it a little bit more generic, right? Generic to capture attention, get more specific to capture specific attention.
Like generic, I could have 4 manufacturers of one starter and identifying the coil in each one and how to test it.
Right. How to identify the coil in starters. Okay. Can you do that in 3 minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you got a video there, right? But now I can take it how to find the coil in XYZ company starter.
8536 specific cat.
Absolutely. And then I've got how to test starter coils, right? So then you can get more specific, right? So there's loads of different ways you can do it. And then you start packaging those things together, right? So you got Square D starter maintenance package.
Then you could have the long version that shows all the maintenance, all the testing, all the parts.
Right.
Identification and testing.
Yeah, so essentially you have a playlist, right? So now you've got that, but that becomes then that ongoing thing. People subscribe to a YouTube channel for that, but as you're cross-posting those things to blog and whatnot, then you're able to send that out in email and find out, when you find out people are interested in breakers, right? And you can see, you sent out, hey, we just did a new video on how to test Square D, this. If people aren't clicking on that, nothing Square D over time, maybe it's an indicator that they don't work on Square D stuff. right? Maybe their focus is a different company, right? So you can begin that segmentation process through that over time. Make sense? Okay. Remember, all this is over time. That's the key. So back to my point at hand is we got in your situation, we got 3 months, the 3 worst months right here. We want to focus on non-RGA. The other 9 months, we want to focus on RGAs. Okay. So what would be one way that we could determine what we want to focus on in each month?
What sells the most
In that month.
in that month?
Yeah. So if you go back and you look at your historical metrics, right, to say, look, December has historically been a huge month for cabinets. I sell more cabinets in December than I sell in any other month. This is crazy, right? So at the end of the day, then we know we want to focus December on cabinets.
Or the end of November
Yeah,
to leading up to the.
maybe. Right? So we want to focus that on that so we can increase the level of sales of things that you're already selling large portions of on average. Right? Because part of it is to be able to capture that market. Right? So that's what we want to look at in our promos. Right? Is what historically can I identify, right? Can I identify months in which certain product categories have sold very, very well?
Yes.
Okay, so if you can do that, that's where your set promos goes, right? So on our sheet here, I'm going to write now, right? I'm going to write January goals, investment recovery series, set promos, distribute investment recovery series. Okay, I'm going to focus my promotional goals in January on that investment recovery series. But if I know in December, cabinets have been great, right? Then my set promos over here is going to be cabinets. Right? So I'm going to go and look. Now, there may be months in which historically I don't know. Maybe there's not enough data, or maybe there's nothing that stood out as spikes in sales, right? That's where I'm going to begin to fill in the gaps, right? So I know if I've got circuit breakers and circuit breaker parts, right? If I've got air handlers and air handler parts, if I've got motor starters and motor starter parts, and I've got cabinets, right? And I identify, wait a minute, motor starter parts tend to do really, really well in March for whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, it just tends to do really, really well. So I'll put that in my March, right? Cabinets tend to do really, really well in December. I may find that I've got 60%, 70%, 80% of my promos already listed out based on historical sales, right? So I know what I want to promote. But then I still may have some blanks. So what am I going to use? What am I going to fill in those blanks with?
Promotional.
It's promotional. It's going to be promotional because you've already set your non-promotional months. I'm just saying you're making sales. It's not a bad month. It's a good month. It's just there's nothing that stands out.
Offer some incentives.
You can offer incentives, discounts. So stop trying to give away the farm.
How else would you dress it promotion?
Product weighting.
Or who?
Product weighting.
Waiting?
Weighting. WEIGHT. All right. So I've got January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Geez, I didn't get myself in the room. October, November, December. Right? All right. So we said December's cabinets. We said January is non-RGA, so I'm not going to worry about that. May, non-RGA. September, non-RGA. So I already have what we're doing for those months listed on my piece of paper. So I know December is cabinets. March, for whatever reason, happens to be motor starters. Tends to do very well. All right. 4th of July, everybody needs breakers. My breakers go out the roof, right, in July for whatever reason, right? It also happens in November for some reason. I've got April. I've got those stinking air handlers, right? Those stinking air breakers, right? I know, okay. All right, so I got air breakers, motor starters, circuit breakers, cabinets.
Parts for each one.
Okay.
There's months that parts really spike. Field service.
Okay.
And other enclosures would be separate than cabinets because it deals with switches, disconnects, things like
Okay.
that.
So I'm looking at historical averages. The question is I've got February here, I've got June, I've got August, I've got October with nothing in it, but nothing really stands out. So what am I going to do?
Look at where your sales fall month by month. So,
We've already looked at that. Nothing stands out.
We've identified that, we've identified major holidays in that same month, so now we've got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, you got October's Halloween. I'm not worried about the major holidays yet. We've not gotten there yet.
Okay.
Figure out what you want to get rid of
Figure out what you want to get rid of.
and promote.
What categories have we not hit?
Oh,
We've got breakers, breaker parts, starter parts.
You don't have starters on here anywhere. So you're saying you don't ever want to promote starters?
Yeah.
So we started with the process of going the non-RGA on the really bad months, right? The next thing is look at months that historically have sales spikes. Hit those categories in those months. But I have other categories that I don't have promos at all because my sales, there's no spikes. I'm getting average sales. I may be getting good sales, but I haven't promoted anything in the other categories.
pick one.
Holidays are when we break down by the month within the month. That is not, I don't care about holidays until I'm ready to look at the specific month. So pick a category and just throw it in there. You can always adjust later. Markers, that's right. Breaker parts. All right? Starter parts.
Enclosures, obviously. Enclosures and, obviously you could do, air breaker parts, coils, etc. Controls. Service. So, first non-RGA, you identify them every first 3 months. Then the spikes, you find the spikes. That should cover roughly 3 months.
And then fill in the gaps with whatever's left. Whatever is left. By the way, and you don't necessarily use all categories, right? Yeah. What I go for is I look at how many blanks do I have, and then what categories tend to have the highest ROI. Right? What categories do I have the highest profit margins in? Okay. Because the categories that I have the highest profit margins in are the ones that I can afford to flub up just a little bit. If I'm making sales, the difference in that higher profit margin tends to help me, even though I might make some mistakes in that particular area, right? So the bad months, I know there's very little I'm going to be able to do in a bad month to make it a good month, right? Just historically, business doesn't work that way, right? That's what everybody wants. That's the silver bullet that everybody wants, but it doesn't exist, right? Yeah. And so when we look at the months with the average spikes, I know I can take what I'm strong at and make myself better, right? So you can take whatever you're doing well at and make it even better, right? and you may be able to do it exponentially so. The months that things don't stand out, where you're making sales, there's just no spikes in sales. There's nothing to be able to determine, I'm selling a lot more of this than anything else during this average month, right? Now I want to look at my profit margin, the categories that are left, and my profit margins in those given categories that I want to assign. Fill in the blanks. That, by the way, is my annual promotional planning. Now, what I can do, the final step that I can take, right, is I can take and do a holy cow scenario.
Holy cow.
Yeah, holy cow scenario. I'll just throw it at that. Try to keep it PG rated, right? So, my holy cow scenario. My holy cow scenario is what happens if I'm trying this promo, right? I'm doing starter parts in June as my promo, and it just ain't working. I'm not getting anything with that.
Retool.
Yeah, in essence, then I need a backup plan.
Plan B.
Right.
So that needs to be prior within the.
Yes, that's what the whole purpose of the column that says potential promotions.
Oh, that's what that's.
Yes, that column right there that's essentially your backup plan column.
Okay.
Right? Because you have set promotions, right? This is what we want to promote during this month. But worst case scenario, this is our backup plan. Okay? In the months like this, where we got breakers for July, I still want to set a backup plan. But my backup plan is not necessarily going to be different category. It might just be a different approach.
So even on your 3 non-RGA worst months, your series that are put in there as your promotional ideas in the first column.
Yep.
So the last column still needs an entry there?
So typically I'm going to put an entry in that last column. So in other words, if we get to January and you haven't given us enough information, we don't have enough to do a 7-part series, I may have to retool that to be able to focus on it as a 3-part series if that's all we've got, right? So we got to do it as a 3-part series and then maybe promote it as an ongoing thought process, so on and so forth, right? If we don't have, if you've got, let's say that you recorded 5 videos on investment recovery, but you didn't provide any of the notes for any of that kind of mess to be able to actually write content off of. We can post the video on the blog with a few keywords on it, but that's about so we may have to move around, right? So instead of releasing it all at once, what I may have to do is release it over the weeks of that month, right? So it's in large part going to be dependent upon what we've got going on, right? With the non-RGAs, how it's happening, how it's structured, what's been prepared, what do we have, and then go from there.
Okay.
And this, by the way, too, is where you're going to do some content, but also if you've got a content specialist that's writing an article for you on a monthly basis, where you can sit back and say, hey, I know we've got these things coming up. So I've got a headline, a potential headline, and I've got a list of bullet points. Can you put me together the article on that? And that's your content for the month, right? That's
the blog or use the blog to make the video.
Correct. And that's another way to plan it out based on your level of busyness, right? It's also the difference, when you get. And again, side note, just it's the difference in having a content creator that's creating 1 piece of content a month versus 1 piece of content a week, right? So it just gives that additional time to be able to even plan this kind of stuff out and have your content creator help with creation of the content, where you can provide the bullet points, the high points. These are the things that need to be talked about in it, and let them help fill in the gaps. And then all you're doing is reviewing and say, hey, we need to talk about this too, or whatever.
So right now, what I need to teach you next is fill out that sheet for promotional and backup, and then
You got it. Because then what happens after this process, that's when we start looking at the actual monthly calendar, right? Because then I can know, okay, January, yeah, you got New Year's Day, you got MLK Day written right here, so on and so forth, right? So I may want New Year's Day to be a relational only email that is non-promotional in nature. Now granted, I mean, we're doing promotions, so non-RGAs are still promotions. They're just not buy from me now type promotions, right? So I may want to focus on, on New Year's Day, just sending out that email, Happy New Year's, congratulations on the new year, da 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 da. MLK Day, yeah. And so then I take and I look at the rest of these and say, okay, where are we at with this investment recovery deal, right? So I'm going to look at this to be able to say, okay, I'm going to approach new subscribers a little different, people that are maybe not customers, about this a little differently. So I may have 5 emails that I'm essentially writing in 4 different ways, right? Because I'm going to send those out to different targets. So you get to July, for example, with the breakers, right? Okay, well, so we know we want to do a 4th of July flash sale. But that's not the only thing that you do in July, right? It means that you have things that are going out regularly, but to different stages of the sales cycle, right? In other words, you got things that are going out to maybe prospects that have never bought breakers from you, that may offer a little bit more significant of a discount than from people that have bought from you, right? Just to turn them into buyers, right? You can always turn buyers into multi-buyers. And so looking at beginning to break these things down to say, okay, what kind of categories or tags of people am I going to send what to in this month? Because July is our breaker month, right? So in other words, it doesn't mean, because we're doing promotions, it doesn't mean that we're sending the same stuff to the same people every day, right? You're not Harbor Freight.
Varies based on RGA's peak months, their action if they were a prospect or a customer, and the categories they bought in or didn't buy in.
Absolutely. And what they've expressed interest in.
Then all that's overlaid to give you the wide angle.
Yes. And none of this is going to people that are in active engagement campaigns or active ascension campaigns. So in other words, if a person has said through their actions, hey, I'm interested in air breakers, and it's July, and okay, we're focused on circuit breakers for the month, but they're interested in air breakers, so they're in an air breaker engagement campaign, we're not sending them those promotions. We may send them a flash sale, right? But we're not sending them the ongoing promotions talking about circuit breakers, so on and so forth, because I don't want to confuse a person that's interested in this by trying to turn around and flip them to this.
They're already in that flow. Don't put a stop sign in the middle of the path.
Exactly.
Okay. Makes sense.
It's like one of those things. Have you ever? And I don't know. I guess it kind of hit me the other day, right? We a little while back, we took the kids to a water park, and we're having a great time. And Piper's tired; she's going to sleep. And Jake's like, "Hey, will you slide down some slides with me while Mama's rocking Piper to sleep for her nap?" And this, sure. I love slides, love water parks, love slides. I'll fly down just about anything. I have virtually no fear of any of that kind of stuff. Cool. We get on this one slide, and he slid down, he hits the bottom, it's my turn, I go to slide down. It's one of those that you go kind of up and down the sides, and you're going around in circles and you're going through all this kind of stuff. About 2/3 of the way down the slide, I stopped. I don't know if you've ever had this happen or not, but it was one of those weird situations where you're laying just right and like your back suctions to the bottom of the slide, and I just stopped, and I was like, I'm trying to, there's just somebody else fixing to come down this slide. You know what I'm saying? I got to get down this stinking slide. You know, the fear kind of set in. I'm like, oh, somebody going to ram me any second now. Some idiot kid not paying attention. What's going on? I got to get down this slide. So I finally get down the slide. Jason's like, what took you so long? I got stuck. Right? That's not what you want to create in your email marketing. You know what I'm saying? You do not want that. You know, that is a friction, and unfortunately, that's something that commonly occurs in email marketing in general. You know, these people, there's a relationship, they're having fun, they're going down the slide, and then all of a sudden you hit them with something, they just stops them, right? And now there's a whole lot of friction trying to get them back going again, and they never get down to the bottom of that funnel just the same. Right? So we want to reduce that friction.
The natural flow has been.
Yeah. Yes, if we can get a person to direct us to what they want to talk about, that's the conversation we want to have. Right? You don't want to be that guy that somebody starts talking to you about something they got going on, and the next thing you know, you're constantly trying to change the subject. Right? Those people frustrate me. Do they frustrate you? Stop changing the subject. We're talking about this. Yes. Then and only then, like I said, once we get this stuff planned out, then and only then is where we actually start looking at effectively breaking down the weeks of a month. Right? Each month stands on its own. Why?
Because sales stands on its own. Its attributes stand on their own.
Okay, sales stand on their own. But why else?
We want to be able to affect that revenue that month.
Okay.
Through our action and through the action of the people.
And efficiency of planning.
Yeah.
Efficiency of planning, right? Because otherwise, if you don't do that, then what happens, right? What ultimately happens is you're going crazy, driving yourself mad, trying to figure out at any given point, what am I going to promote? What am I going to do? What am I going to send out there? What emails do we need to get out? And it creates a mass confusion that causes an analysis paralysis, and you end up not getting anything. Right? You can always adjust.
Plus your target audience may get confused.
Your target audience may get confused. The other thing that you do is you begin to alienate your target audience. They become disengaged. And when you do start trying to get consistent sending them stuff out, they don't really engage with that stuff. And it makes it much more difficult to get them engaged in the first place. Right? So think about that. You plan it out, you get it planned out, you go with it. Like I said, you create a pivot point so you can pivot if you need to pivot, right? But at the end of the day, this creates that particular process. Now you can look in the next annual planning period, how did it go this past time? Based on our choices, based on this, what did it do for our sales? What did it do for our awareness? What did it do for our traffic? What happened with this, this, and this? And then we adjust and hit the next plan up. Make sense?
A lot of moving pieces, but it does.
A lot of moving pieces. That's why you only plan one at a time, right? So, because that's the problem. That's the problem that most people have. And even with you guys earlier, when you're starting to throw out stuff, well, what about the holidays for the month? What about we're not even at the month level yet, right? We're still looking at the year and throwing things in the section of the year. Right? I don't care that 4th of July is here when I don't know what I'm putting in July. I don't care that Christmas is in December when I don't know what my overall promotion for December needs to be. Now, once I get down to breaking down December, and by the way, you do this on a rolling 90-day basis. Right? So once I'm not planning the week by week for every year at once. I'm doing it on a rolling 90 days, right? So it's a rolling 90 days. I look at every 60 days. Make sense? So now I can look at, all right, what are the next 3 months? These are the ones that I got to plan out as far as step by step. And that's where I'm actually saying, okay, this month, this week I'm going to focus on this. This week I'm going to focus on this. This week I'm going to focus on this, right? And as it begins to get closer, now I'm actually creating the emails that go along with it. Make sense? One bite at a time.